Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're zeroing in on a really fundamental human challenge. This tendency we all seem to share, seeing flaws, mistakes in other people with, perfect clarity.
Yeah, high definition.
Exactly. While our own mistakes
Mm-hmm.
kind of stay in this comfortable, fuzzy blind spot.
It's a classic paradox, isn't it? And the sources we're looking at today, they don't really frame it as a moral failing, more like a practical hurdle.
A hurdle to growth.
Exactly, to growth. They're set up as this dialogue between a student and a teacher, really focusing on the power of looking inward first, self-reflection before you jump to criticism.
Right. So our mission here is to unpack that, take that internal dialogue and sort of make it external for you, the listener.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand the psychology behind why we judge so quickly, and I guess discover how humility can change criticism
Yeah, change it from being just, judgmental noise.
into actual helpful guidance.
That's the idea, effective guidance. And it kicks off immediately. The conversation in the sources starts right with the core question. The student basically asks, why is it so easy to see everyone else's mistakes, but so incredibly hard to see our own?
And the teacher's response gives that instant visual aha moment. It's so simple.
Really is.
They ask the student, okay, when you point your finger at someone
Yeah.
to criticize them, where are the other three fingers pointing?
Right back at you.
Exactly.
Back at the speaker. And that analogy, it just instantly shifts the focus, doesn't it? From the other person's mistake to your own internal motive.
Right. If three fingers point back at you, then the question becomes, well, why are you pointing?
What's your motive for speaking up? Are you genuinely trying to help that person improve? Find a better way.
Is it maybe secretly or even subconsciously just about making yourself feel validated?
Feel more correct in that moment.
That's the tricky part, because in the heat of the moment, when you see a mistake, that rush of feeling right, it's powerful, hard to resist.
It really is.
So what do the sources say? Is there a mechanism to force that pause, to actually look at those three fingers pointing back?
Well, the sources suggest the pause is the self-reflection. It's not automatic, though.
Okay.
It needs a deliberate act of empathy, almost forcing a role reversal in your mind. The moment you feel that urge to correct, you have to ask yourself, hang on, have I done something like this? What led me to make mistakes like that in the past?
So it shifts the whole thing.
Yeah.
From being about their screw-up.
Right, to being about shared human vulnerability. We all stumble.
That makes sense. And that's where the theory really becomes practical, isn't it? Let's move from, the why to the how, the real-world proof.
Okay.
The sources have some great anecdotes showing how this self-reflection leads to much better outcomes than just, confronting people.
Yeah, we can start with that classic Dale Carnegie example. He'd hired his niece, Josephine.
Right.
And the source describes her as, young, a bit clumsy, making these frustrating errors early on.
And Carnegie, being focused on efficiency, naturally felt that urge to, reprimand her, give some sharp criticism.
Totally. You can imagine the frustration building, the impatience, that feeling of being justified in correcting her.
But he stopped himself.
Oh.
He forced that pause you mentioned.
Exactly. Instead of just launching into it, he asked himself, wait a minute. When I was her age, just starting out, how many mistakes did I make? Was I perfect? And by doing that, he broke the cycle. That feeling of superiority just dissipated. He shifted from being the critic
to being a co-learner, remembering his own journey.
Precisely. And the result, night and day, apparently. Because he approached her from that place of shared struggle, remembered struggle.
The feedback landed differently.
Totally. The sources say the feedback was warm. That's the word they use.
Warm. So she wasn't defensive, she was guided.
Right. She learned, she took it on board, and eventually became one of his best, most indispensable secretaries. That moment of reflection changed the whole relationship.
It really shows that the frame you put around criticism is everything.
Absolutely. And we see the same principle in that story about the Canadian engineer. He noticed his secretary made a spelling error. Simple thing, but noticeable.
Yeah, those small errors are often the ones that trigger that quick, superior correction from a boss. Feels like an easy win for the ego, maybe.
Could be. But this engineer, he chose the humility path. Instead of confronting her, he actually smiled and confessed his own history with that exact mistake.
Oh, really? What did he say?
Something quite enlightening, I thought. He said, basically, I used to get this word wrong, too. That's why I actually keep a little notebook of common errors I still struggle with sometimes.
Wow. So he didn't just share vulnerability. He shared a tool, a solution born from his own past mistake.
That's the masterstroke, isn't it? Admitting your own shared vulnerability just melts away the other person's resistance.
Yeah, she wouldn't feel judged. She'd feel understood.
Exactly. The guidance worked because he was standing beside her, metaphorically, not looming over her.
He turned potential shame into a moment of, like, collaborative growth.
Right.
Okay, so the practical benefits are clear. Better relationships, better results. But to really make this work for ourselves, we need to understand the internal battle, right? Let's dig into that psychological model the sources talk about, this inner conflict between the ego and the learning self.
Yeah, the underlying psychology is key here. When we jump straight to criticism, it's usually the ego running the show.
Okay.
Its main job, in this context anyway, is to get that quick hit of feeling superior. It wants proof. I'm right, I'm smart, I'm better than the person who messed up.
And that feeling, that superiority boost, could be pretty addictive. Which explains why maybe some people get stuck spotting errors everywhere.
Precisely. But the transformation starts when we look at those three fingers pointing back. When we actually acknowledge our own past struggles or even present ones, the ego, which kind of thrives on this illusion of perfection, it gets challenged. It starts to melt away.
And what's left when the ego steps back? What comes forward?
What's exposed is what the original source calls the learning self. If you translate that idea, it's like the core part of you that just wants to know things. It sees mistakes as neutral data.
Not as personal judgment.
Right, just information. Information you need to adjust and grow. The learning self is open. It sees errors as fuel for getting better.
That feels like the pathway to actual wisdom. It's a huge identity shift.
Yeah.
The source outlines this clear progression, doesn't it? Moving beyond just being stubborn and critical.
It does. It suggests stubbornness comes first, naturally, maybe, but you have to go through humility to eventually arrive at wisdom. Humility is the necessary bridge.
And this links back to how we handle control, right? Our own personal narrative around mistakes.
Absolutely. Think about how we manage mistakes internally. When you admit one, own it openly. You take its power away instantly.
How so?
It stops being this defining flaw, something you have to hide. It just becomes a lesson, something you learn from.
Like the engineer's notebook. It's not a source of shame anymore. It's collected data.
Yeah.
You're changing its emotional value.
Exactly, you are. And the sources argue that's the essential step to controlling your own story. But flip that. If you hide a mistake, refuse to own it, always blame someone else, that mistake gains power over you. You're constantly working to cover it up, defend against it, justify yourself. It's not a lesson anymore. It becomes your master, dictating how defensive you have to be.
That's a really powerful distinction. Mistake as lesson versus mistake as master. And it connects our ability to pause before criticizing others directly to our own freedom.
Totally. If we're mastered by our own hidden errors, we almost have to judge others to keep up the facade.
Right.
Only when we're free from our own mistakes, because we've turned them into lessons, can we genuinely look at someone else's slip-up with empathy instead of judgment.
Okay, let's bring this home for the listener. How do we actually internalize this day to day, dealing with a critical colleague, or maybe a struggling employee, or even guiding a child?
Well, the biggest realization, according to the student's final reflection in the source, is the prerequisite, the starting point.
Which,
to genuinely help others change, you first have to be willing to change yourself. You can't guide someone up a tricky path if you pretend you've never stumbled on that same path yourself. Or worse, if you refuse to admit you're still stumbling sometimes.
And this focus on internal change means, well, just talking isn't enough. Our words can feel empty.
They often are. The source material really emphasizes that criticism lacks power unless it's rooted in internal truth. How we actually live, our actions, our example. That's the real lesson we offer.
So it calls for a shift in language, too.
Yeah.
We feel that urge to correct someone.
A very conscious shift. Instead of launching in with, you're wrong because X, Y, Z, which just makes the other person's ego flare up defensively.
Put some on the back foot immediately.
Exactly. The source advocates starting from a place of shared vulnerability.
Like saying, I struggled with this exact thing for years, or, oh man, I made a similar mistake once and it cost me. Something like that.
Precisely like that. That simple opening move transforms the whole interaction. You stop delivering what feels like a judgmental verdict.
And start offering maybe a guiding light instead.
Yes. A guiding light. You're not the judge standing above them anymore. You're a fellow traveler who knows the terrain, maybe even knows where the pitfalls are because you fell in them yourself.
It's a difference between pointing out the failure and maybe illuminating a solution you found the hard way. The whole frame changes. It's not about proving you're better, it's about connection.
And that connection is what allows the learning self in the other person to actually surface and hear the information. Without that connection, the ego stays up, the defenses stay up, and the lesson just bounces off.
This whole deep dive, it feels like it's fundamentally about realizing that urge we have to fix others.
Yeah.
It's often just a big deflection, isn't it?
A profound deflection, yeah. Avoiding the discomfort of fixing or even just reflecting on ourselves. And recognizing that is, I think, the final really liberating message in these sources. Admitting our mistakes, letting those three fingers point back, and being honest about what they show it doesn't make us weaker.
It doesn't diminish us.
No, it does the opposite. It sets us free. Free from pretending, free from carrying that burden of the perfect facade, and truly free to learn, to grow, to evolve.
So the journey towards wisdom really does start by looking inward. Every single time we feel that pull to judge or criticize someone else.
Because only people who've dared to look into their own shadows, honestly assess their own stuff, only they can genuinely bring light to others without it being tinged with superiority.
Right.
And the student's final thought was fascinating. He realized that if he truly mastered self-correction, maybe he wouldn't even need to criticize others much at all.
Which leaves us with a really provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. If we reached that state of true internal wisdom, could the ultimate goal actually be the complete absence of the need for external correction? Because we're all focused on our own growth first.
Something to think about.